Let's get started on our part 5 of ancient Rome. All right, so we've got a number of crises and changes that are going to be made, at least attempt to stem the bleeding, so to speak, and are going to try to keep Rome together. Ultimately, though, a combination of foreign invasions and additional causes is going to lead to the quote-unquote fall of Rome. When it comes to power being struggled for, there's a massive amount of turnover that occurs. There's a period of about 50 years where 26 emperors reign, and only one of them in that period is actually going to die of natural causes, which means that 26 of them died of unnatural causes, either assassinated or taken out in a coup. So there's a huge amount of political instability at this time. Economically and socially at this time, we have very, very high taxes because of the large need for the additional military to guard the borders, and the bureaucracy is really swollen and grown to a point that it needs additional money to keep it going. The farmland, agriculturally, is also losing productivity, and we have farmers who had previously been farm owners really kind of dropping down socially and economically, becoming farm hands because of the loss in productivity and the high taxes. Emperor Diocletian is going to attempt to really kind of sever the problem part of the Roman Empire. And when I say that, it's almost like he's amputating the bad part of Rome. And when I say bad, I mean the part that's not being productive. The eastern part of Rome is actually doing quite well still at this time period. But he divides the empire into an east and a west, with the eastern capital eventually being at Constantinople. That'll be changed under Constantine. The western empire still hanging out the capital of Rome. He also tries to reinstitute a number of elaborate ceremonies to try to aggrandize, or to make more opulent, make more ornate his office, to try to sort of reestablish his office as being very important and grand. But he also sees a period of pretty high inflation during this time, which leads him to make some changes with regard to fixing prices. This doesn't mean prices were broken, but what it rather means is the fact that he took prices and set them at a certain level to prevent further inflation. Constantine is going to be tolerant of Christianity, and again, he's going to issue the Edict of Milan, which is going to tolerate several religions, specifically Christianity, but others as well. He's going to move the capital to Constantinople, and really the seat of the Roman Empire is going to effectively move to the east, which further basically means that the west is pretty much done. All right, so they're going to mix results. They are going to help the economy and strengthen the government, but really all this is going to do is slow down the inevitable. Between the changes of Diocletian and Constantine, can't really stem the tide and keep Rome from really falling. There's going to be a number of foreign invasions as well. The impact of the Huns is going to be significant. And again, this isn't because the Huns are really overriding the borders of Rome, although it does happen in some areas. It's more as if, imagine that you lived in a coastal city, and that coastal city had, on its beach, had a population of man-eating ants that were the size of Volkswagens. In the setup, the ants never leave the beach. The humans never go to the beach. So they have this relationship where the ants would eat the people if they come on land, but they never really get that far. But let's say there's a giant tsunami, and there's a big flood, which pushes the ants up on the land. Well, the ants are going to start eating the people, but the question is this: is the wave responsible for killing the people, or is the ants responsible for killing the people? That's kind of how you can look at the Huns, because they move in behind these other groups, these other Germanic tribes, like the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths and the Vandals, and they move and they push these people because of need for resources and land. They push them into Roman territory, but in many respects, they weren't doing the direct attacking. All right, again, the Visigoths and the Ostrogoths are fleeing to the west. Rome is going to give up Britain, France, and Spain before the fall. They're going to actually just cut off those parts of their empire and give them up. Rome is going to be defeated actually several times militarily. The borders are going to continually be under attack. In 410, Rome was going to be plundered. Basically, all the wealthy people of Rome are all going to basically line up at the gates and give all of their valuables away to get the Visigoths to leave. However, 66 years later, Odoacer is going to be coming in, and he's actually going to physically overthrow the emperor. 476 is typically the date that which people understand as being the date that Rome fell, quote unquote. It really is a process, though, so to look at it at any one time, that's really just the falling of Rome, the city, and it wasn't really a definitive end of the Roman Empire. And why did it fall? Well, there's really several categories of reasons. There was military, political, economic, and social causes for why Rome actually falls apart. Militarily speaking, a lot of it had to come from the use of mercenaries. A mercenary is a soldier that gets paid to do what he does, has little or no affiliation or connection with the cause. This is an extreme opposite from the way Rome's military really kind of started and was really powerful when it was the citizen soldier, who had everything to gain, and they weren't even paid because of this ideal of being a citizen of Rome. So these mercenaries who are being paid to fight, they lack a lot of discipline and training, and many of them are actually Germanic, which means they're actually being paid to fight the people that they're more closely culturally associated with. Politically speaking, the government is becoming more and more oppressive as more and more pressure builds up on it, and the officials are becoming corrupt. Not that there weren't always corrupt officials, because to a certain extent there always are, but they're getting more and more corrupt over time. We also have this period of frequent civil wars over succession. We have a lot of emperors that just fail to name a clear successor, and we also have a little bit of the red-headed stepchild syndrome with regard to the East, which is now very wealthy and doing quite well, is not willing to move in and help the Western Empire. Economically speaking, the taxes are basically out of control. They keep going up to pay for the military and the bureaucracy. This causes a problem, and one of the reasons why is the fact that you have the slave labor also discouraging technology. So you have unbelievable taxes, you have a lack of technology. There's some people that say a climate change sort of occurred, maybe had an impact agriculturally, but that's more of a footnote. The population decline, however, is also a problem because of war and disease. So you have taxes going up, the population going down, and technology coming to a halt. Economically speaking, I mean, we're really grinding to a standstill. Socially, we have a massive decline in values and patriotism. Again, this is heavily influenced by the use of mercenaries. But socially, these things, this ideal of Rome, this holding up this great, wonderful place that Rome is, that begins to retreat, or actually retreats quite quickly. The upper class really becomes withdrawn and very concerned and focused on their luxurious living and their own self-interest. We also have the sort of the other shoe falls with regard to the bread and circuses, which is the population, which is used to being entertained and fed, ceases to be. Well, when that ceases to happen, it's like if you are used to inviting a bunch of teenagers over your house and giving them pizza and giving them money to go to the movies. You do that for a very long period of time, and then all of a sudden you stop. They're not going to understand why, and they're going to get very upset because they want their food and entertainment, and that's basically what happens with the Roman citizens. So the question is, did Rome really fall? I mean, the bottom line is it doesn't actually disappear in 476. It just falls to Odoacer in 476. But when we say Rome, we must be careful because the city of Rome may have fallen, but the impact and the existence of the empire doesn't cease for a very, very long time. The Eastern Empire is going to become the Byzantine Empire, which is going to flourish for quite some time to come. And Italy, as a cultural center, the life there is going to remain somewhat unchanged. The rulers may switch over, but culturally, the impact of the transition is minimal. And then finally, the impact of Roman on Germanic culture is also going to be quite significant. So that's where we kind of leave it.